knocking the gate of life. Trying to keep the shoulders, the head in line with the hips. So I'm turning from the hips, not turning from the shoulders. It doesn't matter if you can't turn very much. You only need to scan from corner to corner. Feeling that my torso is moving as a unit. So the iron bar swathed in layer upon layer of cotton. The iron bar is your spine, but also your seriousness, your probity, your inner togetherness. And the cotton is just the circles that we create with our turning. They are soft and they're smiling. So the straight tends to go upwards like an arrow pointing upwards, and the circles will tend to sink. And then into the second one. So remember here, just try and keep the knee out. So don't let the knee collapse inwards. Again, I'm trying to turn from the hips. Feeling that it's your turning that's whipping your arms up. So the turning needs to be quite vigorous. So if you're turning, then inside you're smiling. And with each turn, you're sinking. And then this third one where we pivot on the ball of the foot and just let the arms fly to the side. So in the previous one, my arms were trying to wrap around my spine. Now they're just flying out to the sides. And the image of releasing little birds from your palm as you release the arms. So spirit. And now let's try this one where we do the circles, but like the way we've been doing it. Try not to lean forward with the spine too much and just keep the torso as a unit. So not moving the arms, using the legs and the waist to make this circle. It doesn't matter how big the circle is. sink. Sticking the bum out is a reluctance to bend the legs. This is what this exercise is teaching us. If I'm reluctant to bend my legs, then I will lean forwards like this. What I want is to be able to go down without leaning forwards too much. I'm only leaning forwards to keep my balance, not in order to relieve the legs. It takes a while to get down. You just have to start small and gradually let it build up. And then just changing direction. Now then wind it down, so it's gradually reducing the circles. Now just backwards and forwards. And just remember what we've been working on, trying to keep the hips square. So that requires me to really straighten this leg when I go into this leg. And it requires me to really straighten the back leg when I come into the front leg. And when you go back, sort of lean forwards a bit. So we want to break here in the hips, in these inguinal folds. Just have to get used to straightening the leg, the emptying leg. I really want to straighten this leg. And then straightening this leg. The straightening leg is important to get the hip either forwards or back, but it's also important because it's that straightening, stretching that then releases to pull me back. This is really straightening to push me out of it, and then I just release that. I just release that tension. The tension here that actually straightens the leg. and that bends it. Now I straighten the leg by tensing here. And this is the thing, we want to use the muscles. So I'm tensing here. This is becoming tense because it's being stretched, not because it's working. And then this kicks in, and then the hamstring kicks in and bends, and that draws me into the leg. We want to feel the alternating between the straightening and the bending being the switch from the quad to the hamstring. Now let's try the other foot. Like we used to do, just a little bit of speed. But with that same feeling, even though the leg doesn't really straighten, there's a sense that it's trying to, but it just pulls back a bit too soon because we're going a little bit more quickly. We want to feel that it's all in the empty leg. The activity is in the empty leg. The support is in the full leg. If I use my full leg to move me, which I can do, but it just has this sort of pedestrian, boring, colorless quality. Whereas when I use the empty leg to pull at myself, pull the ground in order to get me moving, it's much more of spirit. So it's like you're bouncing between these two places, these 2 points on the ground all the time, rather than just moving out from a middle, venturing this way a little bit and then this way a little bit. So you're very much in 2 places. You're either in the front foot or you're in the back foot, and you're just pulling between them. And then it just becomes this exercise. That's exactly what this exercise is. If we can get it coming from the feet, the empty foot. So here, this foot stretches and then it clenches the ground and pulls me back. That effectuates a yield and also an attack. This then goes to its limit, stretches, and then pulls back. I'm just working with the real limits, going right to the edge all the time. I'm not staying in the comfortable middle. I appear to be in the middle because when those 2 extremes average out, that's what you get the middle. But it's an oscillation between the 2 extremes. repulse monkey, which is driving yourself back. But I have to drive myself back and make sure I'm not facing over here. So I have to really straighten this front leg so that the energy is going along the direction of the front leg. So my front leg is always trying to define the direction of the energy. This is one of the reasons we have the weight in the outside edge, so that the big toe is pointing in a little bit, and then my energy converges into the other person. So here I really have to press here so that the energy doesn't end up going towards this corner. It will actually go forwards. And then here I need to push with my back leg so that I don't drift over here similarly. And it's difficult. I'd like it to come from the mind. My mind is so insistent, so aggressive in its intent to go forwards. That's the way my body ends up facing. It's the intensity of my mind that directs my body. And now let's try the shoulder one. Again, get this outside edge straight so that your big toe comes in a little bit. Just imagine someone standing in front of you here and your big toe is sort of pointing into their center. And then just the hands on the, you can either have it on the hip, on the iliac crest, or in the fold of the groin. I prefer to have mine here, and then I can sort of massage that area. And then just circle. And just using that back leg to push yourself into the front leg all the time, especially as you come forwards over the top. And the other foot forwards. And this toe pointing slightly inwards. And now stepping. Just sinking down into the foot. I'll tend to go into the heel. That allows this heel to release. And then I step forwards. feeling the empty leg pulling you. The empty leg wants your weight, and it's that that starts you moving. And then it just becomes this exercise again. And then the other. Try it the way we used to do it, just swinging the arms. And now waving hands in the clouds, but let's start it by just doing this, rotating around the circle. So on this one, just really try and feel the two forces. The centrifugal, so this sense that the circle is trying to expand and expand and expand. Like when you're standing and riding horse and it just feels like this is getting so swollen. And yet it's also tethered to a center. And it's that that prevents it from flying away with itself. But there are these two forces, an outward and an inward. We just want to watch the play. And then we just start turning with it. So turning the hips, and it becomes waving hands in the clouds. My torso is just keeping this circle going within itself. And the hips are turning the torso side to side at the same time. I just want to feel these two movements being somehow separate and independent of each other. So if your mind wanders, you lose the thread, then it will tend to collapse into itself. The circle will tend to shrink. You just observe that. And that's because we're going slowly. If we're going much more quickly, then the outward would take over from the inward, and it would tend to fly away with itself. So if I can use my spirit to intensify the outward, the tendency of this circle to expand, then my inward will also have to intensify to balance that. This is how we work. Work on one force by intensifying its opposite. So as Taoists, our prime concern is with the maintenance of central equilibrium, of a dynamic equilibrium between opposing forces. So first of all, we have to locate those forces, separate them out, see them working, and then just see how they depend upon each other. And now just this one where we turn. So this, we can really concentrate on keeping the shoulders and the arms locked into the hips and not moving. My whole torso turns side to side, but my arms don't move relative to my torso. It requires a different mind, like a more grown-up mind that can just watch this stillness moving and doesn't need to help. The movements that you do with your arms, with your upper body, very much come from you, come from your sense of who you are, from your ego. And there's a sense that the movements that are happening of your complete torso coming from your legs, because obviously it's my legs that are turning my hips. It's almost like someone else is moving you around, like you're a mannequin and you're being moved by a separate entity. So this is something we're trying to feel as well. That bigger aspect of me that's moving my hips. And the best way to do it is just really concentrate on keeping the upper body still. And another way is, when I work with my students, I'll just get them standing like this, and I'll stand behind them, and I will turn their hips. And then it's much easier for them just to feel their body locked into one. And that's the feeling. And the feeling is as though someone else is doing it for you. It's coming from somewhere else. It's not coming from you. People find this very difficult. So as soon as I move, I tend to tense up. The energy will rise a bit, the shoulders will come up towards my ears, and this will start to get tense, but it doesn't need to. This is what we want to look at. It is possible just to produce this movement with no tension whatsoever in the upper body. So just because I feel my upper body moving, it doesn't mean I have to get tense. And then you just notice that, why do I get tense? Why do I get tense? It's simply to give myself the feeling that I'm doing something. But we don't need to. We don't need to do something. We just need to be present in the midst of this turning. And then just turning the head. Shoulders relaxed. As I do this one, I tend to just register the energy. So as I turn to the left, my left arm tends to become energized. As I turn to the right, my right arm. Feel the energy moving from arm to arm as you turn the head. And just try and keep relaxed around the sacrum. And then you'll also move the weight slightly. The weight will move into the leg you're turning towards. So pumping the ears. And then tapping those points on the back of the head, either side of the occiput, with your flicking fingers. Again, just relaxing, 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 so the energy can get through into the head. and then forming loose fists and massaging the whole kidney area. So between your hips and your ribs, either side of the spine. You can do both together or you can alternate them, it doesn't matter. And then just rubbing the belly. Feel these two folds here in the groin. It's like your hands go down there and just trace them. And then the other way. And then breathing the arms up. Breathing in on the way up, out on the way down. It's wanting to do this all the time. It's wanting to separate and alternate. So there's two yous. There's part of you that's split into two that's doing this. One side does one thing, the other side does the opposite. But then there's like a bigger you that contains that smaller you that's doing this. And they're sort of tugging at each other. So this is always wanting to sort of do this. So basically what that means is that turns are wanting to come in all the time. The waist gets a bit fed up of being stuck still. It wants to turn. So if it turns, then this will happen. So that's there in the background whilst you're doing the stationary one. And now circling the foot, sinking into the heel. Let's try it with the hand out. We want this feeling of, I like a counterbalance here that's balancing the rotation of the leg. This is really difficult. I mean, it's easy to do this. It's easy to keep your balance, but to keep this relaxed as you're moving the leg and keeping your balance is a tall order. And the arm out the side really helps. And then the other side. So it's not just my arm that's out the side, it's my mind that's flowing down the arm in this direction whilst my leg is doing this. So again, two minds. And then shaking the ankle. This is difficult as well. If it's not difficult, then the mind will tend to wander. You need to always find ways of making it difficult for yourself, just as a technique to keep your interested mind on the job. Rotating the wrists. So this is for just getting the blood out of the hands. But you just keep on going until the hands just feel jelly-like, almost out of control. They've relaxed so much. And then just give them a good shake as you come back. And then just relax into a tension posture. Remember, the legs are straight, but they're definitely not locked. A real sense that you can just melt down into them without having to unlock them. Feeling here that the top of the head is suspended, like there's a spring coming out of your head, coiled spring that's attached to the ceiling so it can bounce, it can boing. That is stretching the back of the neck. The sacrum is heavy. The sacrum is really the thing that's hanging off this spring. It's the heavy plum at the end of the plumb line. And then I just have to feel my legs, my legs, if they're straight, too vigorously straight, then they'll tend to push this sacrum back a little bit. So I want the feeling that the sacrum is just melting down through my legs. So what do I need to do with my legs to just let my spine down through them? The waterfall of warm water flowing down the front of your body, but also the sense of the thymus wanting to lift up through that. So thymically, you're actually got this rotation happening up the front, down the spine, up the front, down the spine. But your whole body tends to be doing this circuit. So the image that you're giving the world is one of real sort of peaceful containment and withdrawal. And yet within that, you're really active. The force that through the green fuse drives the flower. Such a beautiful phrase, but it just describes this upward surge so beautifully. And now let's just bring the arms out to the side. So if your arms are quite straight without the shoulders getting tense, then the distance between your fingertips, between my left middle finger and my right middle finger, is pretty much normally within the inch, the same as your height. So we just want to feel that, we're quite aware of our length from top to bottom, but this reach is the same. So if you were to draw a box around us, it would actually be a square. Feel the navel, the dantian, that is the center of the square. When it gets difficult and you can't hold it up anymore, bring the arms up, keeping them straight. And now the arms are with the verticality of my spine. And then just bring the arms back down, palms facing down. Going into a squat. So you're just creating a circle with the hands until you're by the feet. And now straightening the legs and just bringing something up the center. When you get to the heart, turn the hands over and continue them going up. Straightening the legs without compromising the relaxation in the sacrum, and then down again. Lifting from the ground. So this is the circuit of precipitation, or you can think of the leaves falling off the tree. So here the leaves are falling. And then this is the tree sucking up nutrients and water to help create new foliage. This is me reaching to the sun, the source of energy, and then they fall again. So a real sense of falling here. And then just pumping up from the ground, using your legs. And then just up to the dantian, and then just hands on the dantian. So mind in the Dantian, it's a tricky instruction. The best way to practice it really is just through the day. Every time when you do something that you can just bring a little bit of attention to, something that's quite short. John used to use sitting down into a chair, getting up from a chair and opening a door or closing a door. Just have your mind here in the Dantian and just feel as though that's the source of your power for the action. And it's quite interesting because when you do that, it becomes clear that you very much have to keep your heart, your head, out of this region for it to really be physically a center of power. If I'm too much trying to get into it with my anxious mind, then I ruin the functioning of the body. So it's a bit like, reaching forward to shake someone's hand. You don't sort of do this. Something just comes out, but you remain here. Part of you is in your Dantian as the hand reaches forward. And so the heart has to be able to separate from here. So we're always working on lots of different levels. There's the physical, there's the emotional, there's the spiritual. So all these things are there working together, but not together, all in different realms. But this is why we can have the body reaching up to God, to heaven, at the same time that it's sinking down into the ground. Like those images of El Greco, the saint breaking at the knees as he's reaching upwards with his heart. The Taoist balance, the Taoist equilibrium, central equilibrium. My heart is yearning. It's homesick. It wants to go home. And so does my body. My body wants to go home. The home of my body is the earth, where it will decompose, go back to its elements. And the home for this is just the cosmos. And I just maintain a balance. It's never either or. It's always and.